All right, so today, by popular demand, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at those kits hand gestures and how to perform them to building your scene. So Julia, what's on today's agenda?
All right, so for today's agenda, we're going to be creating a scene using those Kit's hand gestures. So this involves moving the camera, adding and moving items, and also selecting and grouping items. So we're going to be covering all the gestures that you can find on that gesture ribbon when you're building in the scene builder. So Franklin will now continue with the webinar.
Great. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to go ahead and open up kits. And what we're going to do is we're going to introduce one item here so I can demonstrate. Let's close this actually first. What we're going to do is we're actually going to bring in one item. It'll most likely be a chair. And then what we'll do is we'll go through the hand gestures. And after we've completed all the hand gestures, what we'll do is we'll quickly finish off the scene by adding a typical, and then we can do a quick rendering of that. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to go ahead and tap on the plus sign at the very top to open up my kits project. Now, if this is your first time using kits, or if you haven't turned off the hand gesture icon at the top right over here, you'll see this gesture ribbon at the very top with all the little movie gestures of how to perform the gestures that you'll need to get used to building your scene here in kits. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to follow these gestures and we're going to perform them. And what we actually have on screen as well is a little video that is actually going to be showing my hand gestures as I perform it on using my kits. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the add item menu. And what I want to do is I want to bring in a chair. So let's go to 9 to 5 seating. And we're going to go ahead and use ARIA for this. Let's go with the 1880 mesh back model. Here are all the models. And I'm going to go with the very last one. So I'm going to double tap on the image. And then before I bring it to the scene, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish off the specification here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with the grade B fabric in blue. And let's go with Cabana 204. Tap on next. And I'm going to go with the nice aqua mesh. Next again. And let's go with a polished base. Casters. And finally, no lumber support. Tap on done. And now let's bring in the chair into the scene. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure I bring the chair in the center of the floor grid. Anytime you add any items to your scene, when you're building a scene, it's best to start off in the middle of your scene. The reason why is because the hand gestures that we're going to go through, such as camera rotate and camera pan, is really based on the position of the items on that floor grid. Just so you understand, what we have here is basically a camera that's sort of in this kits universe that is above the floor grid, which aims directly at the center of the actual floor grid. So when you use your camera rotate, the better position your items are, the better the rotation is going to be around your items that you want to look at. Okay, so here we have the first item, and what we're going to do is we're going to do camera rotate. So I'm going to place my fingers on the left-hand side, and I'm going to begin to rotate to the right. Next, we're going to go with camera pan. Now, camera pan allows us to move the camera up, down, left, and right. All you need to do is place a finger on the screen, just as in the movie gesture, and then we're going to go up, down, left, right, and again, up, down, left, right. So you can see how I can actually move the floor grid itself. I'm not actually moving the object, I'm moving the actual scene itself. Now, in case you move the scene off the screen, what you can do is you can always go to your camera reset button. That's at the bottom right over here. All you have to do is tap on camera reset. And what that does is it brings your floor grid back to center. Okay, a lot of times we swipe a little too quickly, and what happens is we lose the floor grid and we get this white space, and it's hard to find where we move that floor grid. All you have to do is tap on camera reset, and again, the floor grid will come back to center. Right. Next, we have the action camera zoom. And what we're going to do is we're going to pinch in and out just as in the gesture. Remember, most of these gestures are similar gestures to what you normally do on a smartphone or a tablet. These are all common gestures. So again, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch in and out, and that'll allow me to zoom into the scene. Now, depending on where you position your fingers, that will determine where you zoom into the scene. So if I place my fingers on top of the chair, I'm going to zoom in directly in that chair. If I place my fingers to the right of the chair, I'm zooming into that space. So depending on where you place your fingers for the zoom, that will allow you to zoom into that space itself. Okay. All right. Next, what we have is item move horizontal. Now here, all you need to do first is you need to make sure that you tap on an item to select an item. We know we've selected the item. Whenever we tap on it, either a blue box, red box, or even a green box will appear around that particular item. A blue box just indicates that that particular item is a separate item and it's not grouped together. Red and green boxes indicate that the item belongs to some type of grouping. All right, so here we have the actual item selected. I'm just going to zoom out quickly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my finger on the item, and now I'm going to move the item. And you know I'm moving the item because my floor grid is staying put, yet the item is actually moving in the scene. So next, what we have is the item move vertical. Now here, what we're going to do again is what we want to do is we want to be able to adjust our items that need to be placed at specific heights. Now the good thing is most of the items that the manufacturer or of the manufacturer symbols already have what we call our location points or location nodes. This is to indicate where they need to be placed in any particular layout. So for instance, a hutch that goes over the manufacturer's standard height credenza will appear always above that credenza. And the reason being is because the hutch can't be applied in a scene without having its base, which is the credenza. So that's why it's always it always populates at the height it's supposed to be at. Now, certain items like panels and panel fabrics or panel tiles, they can be adjusted in terms of the type of frame that's being used. These will have to be manually adjusted in your scene. So you'll have to use the vertical hand gesture or the vertical item move here to be able to pick your item off the actual floor grid space. So here we're going to place 3 fingers on the screen, and we're going to go up to raise it. I'm just going to rotate so you can see that I'm actually raising this in the sky. And again, if I go into my elevation view, you can see, again, I'm raising up and down, raising the actual item vertically in the space. All right, so next we have is item rotate. Now this is probably the most trickiest gesture of them all. What you need to do is you need to move your hands or your fingers together in a rotation, just as in the gesture there. Now sometimes kits may confuse that rotation as a camera rotate, as I'm doing here. So you need to make sure that your fingers are positioned correctly and that you move them together as one, just as I'm doing so here. Okay. Now, one thing that you can do as well is you can lock your camera by tapping on the camera unlock lock button over here. What that does is it locks its position. So now if I try to rotate my camera, I can't rotate it. You know I'm trying to rotate it because the icon on the right is doing a little jig. However, if I try to rotate the item, it's allowing me to do so. Okay, so it's just a nifty little lock feature that you can use when you're trying to rotate your images or your graphics. Here, what we're going to do is for the next item, we're going to do a drag select. But before I do that, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the share. So I have 2 of them in the space. Perfect. Okay. And what I want to do for this gesture is I want to do exactly as I see here in the movie gesture. I'm going to place my left thumb on the select button. And now I'm going to place my finger at the top left of the area I want to select, and I'm going to drag diagonally across. And what that does is it creates a marquee box, and anything that's captured within that marquee box gets selected as part of the selection. Here, I'm going to let go of my right hand and now my left hand, and you can see that both items are now selected, and I can move them as one. Okay. And then lastly, the last hand gesture that you need to learn is the multi-select. Now, this is similar to the drag select. However, this time, all we need to do is tap on the select button. That will highlight it in blue. And then what you need to do is tap on the first chair, and then you could tap on the second chair. And this way, it'll also add that to a selection. But once you complete that, always make sure that you turn off the hand gesture, or turn off the select button, so that any other item you tap on accidentally won't be added to this selection. Here again, I can still move everything as one. I can even tap on group to group those together. Okay, so we pretty much covered all the hand gestures, and you can see here with the movie ribbon that we've created what you need to do in order to edit your scene when you're creating your projects. What we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly build a scene using those gestures that we just learned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a typical to my project by tapping on the Add Item button. Go to Reset All. I'm going to go to Planning Typicals. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a typical by Indiana. Let's view their products. Here you can see their full collection line. I'm going to go ahead and use Canvas. And we're going to use IND-0007. So I'm going to go ahead and double tap on that typical number. There it is. And let's drag it into the scene. Okay. So you can see here's the typical. And I'm just going to do a quick rotation to make sure I validate that. And let's go ahead and move it to center, zoom in. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and specify the actual furniture. First, I'm going to ungroup it because we don't need that chair. So I'm going to remove that chair. And now I'm going to go ahead and select some of the finishes for it. Okay, so we're going to quickly specify this. And that's going to be no charge. There we go. Next. We're going to replace all. And we're going to go with Asian Night. Square. No selection. And again, no charge. Next, let's go with the storage. And here we're going to specify these. Yep. There we go. And we're going to go with white door finishes and aluminum door handles. All right, next. Let's finish this specification. And again, we're going to go with the same. And here we go. One more. Perfect. And that was arc. There we go. All right, so we got the bottom half done. What I want to do is I want to make sure we change that back to the original spec. There we go. That was square. There we go. Okay, let's pick the metal frame option. Perfect. And now let's finish off the top. Here we're going to go and finish this off. And that was white with the dark doors. And again, this is going to be white. And lastly, let's finish this off. And that is we are looking for this one here. Tap on done, and there we go. Perfect. So we're now complete the specification of the items. Looks like we have these back panels here, which we can quickly finish. So you can see again how we're performing all these gestures in order to edit the actual scene that we're working on. Okay. Oh, and lastly, we have this credenza support, and that's also going to be white. Perfect. My specification is done. I'm going to go into plan view. Let's tap on that chair. I'm now going to move it over to behind the desk. And again, I'm going to slightly rotate it as I usually like. Let's go into 3D view, and voila. Our project is now completed. I'm going to turn off the hand gesture symbol by tapping on the hand icon at the top right here. And I'm now going to position this for the rendering that I want to create for my client. Tap on HD render, and let's render that image. Okay, so if you have any questions, now is probably a good time to start typing them into the chat box. Or if you have any additional questions regarding the tool that doesn't have to do with today's webinar, what you can do is you can always email our support team or contact our support team, and they'll be more than happy to help you out. And there it is. There's a little project. As you notice here, the chair is floating a little bit high, and that normally doesn't happen. So let's go ahead and make sure that we go into plan view or elevation view. Here we can quickly validate what everything looks like, and obviously you can see there is an issue there. So let's use the vertical raise gesture, and that's this one over here. And I'm going to place 3 fingers on my screen. I'm going to drag down, and you can see that the chair is now in place. And again, let's go ahead and create that quick rendering. Okay, so there's various ways you can actually create your scene. There's actually various ways you can validate how it looks. Again, going through the different views, such as your 3D view, plan view, and elevation view, will help you validate what that graphic is going to look like before you render. And once you're satisfied, there it is. I can easily tap on export, save that to my photo library, or what I can do is I can email it out directly to my client. Here's a generic email that it's going to use, and remember, it will always use the email that's default to your iPad. So if it's not your professional one, you'll want to send it to your professional email and then send it back out, and there's the lovely image that we've created. Right? And that's pretty much it, everyone. We've completed the review for hand gestures and kits. Thanks again for attending, and we hope to see you right back here next week for Webinar Wednesday. So again, if you need to contact us, here are support numbers, as well as contact numbers. All right, thanks for joining us today, guys.